The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys. They let us think that we're big boys. They let us make a lot of noise, but women rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. For you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you. With you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghost. It's scaring them.
All right, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Oh, the deeper I fall.
Okay! Game on! Game on! Game on!
The password is...
All right.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Nephew. Bye-bye.
Yeah, just please take your seat about it. We're with you. It's time to pick up. Start. 2, 1. Boost the ignition and lift off.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to Space Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. It's good to have you along for the ride on this Thursday, April 20th, Friday, April 21st, if you're on the East Coast. Hope you had a great 420 today. We are live right here in Uncle Jimbo's cabin, right here in the Great White North, as we are live 7 days a week. Let's welcome in everyone listening in on our terrestrial radio stations. WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of the Walking Dead. We are also live as well on the United Public Radio Network on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. We love being live as we are also broadcasting on spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, on the United Public Radio Network, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, KTLK, the Fringe FM, our brand new affiliate, and on Revolution Radio. Remember, if you're listening in on the Double R machine, it is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. If you like our theme music, you can thank our resident guitar god, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio. If you're a social media junkie like I am, give us a follow on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can tune us in on TuneIn, download this show and others on iTunes. We're also on Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. We are also, if you heard what I'm having in my headphones, I got some background noise going on in my headphones. We're also on RadioGuide.fm, TalkStream Live, and on Stitcher, and of course our website is spacedoutradio.com. And if you head over to Patreon.com, I'll tell you right now what's going to happen. For $1 a month, you can become a patron of Spaced Out Radios. Now, if you want to take part in this show, you got to do me a favor. All right? What you got to do is you got to sign into one of the chat rooms because we don't take callers on this show. So go to our website, click on Listen Live, enter the Space Out Radio chat room. We're on Revolution Radio, on Spreaker, on the UPRN chat room, or if you're a valued member of the SOR Space Travelers Club, rock with that as well. Or if you're on Twitter, use the hashtag SpaceOutRadio. I will get to your questions and comments in there as well. So make sure you check that out. If you go to our website for just $5 a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler because we want to give you some swag. And of course, on our website, we have our Encounter. Yes, the Encounter Online. It's our brand new news section that we are putting together by our editors, Eric Markham and Everett Thiemer. It's good to have them rocking news out. My blog is on there as well. So make sure you check it out. Let us know how you think as well. April 20th has a lot of meaning for a lot of people. For those who enjoy a good toke, well, it's 420. So I hope you're enjoying this little bit of hippie lettuce today. But around these parts of this studio in Uncle Jimbo's cabin, April 20th has a much different meaning. You see, 2 years ago, tonight, well, actually in 1 hour from now, I was doing a show on Buddha of all topics. And during that first 20 minutes of the show, all of a sudden an alien gray appeared outside my window. The alien, now known around these parts as Carl, has become synonymous with what we do. Damn it, Carl, you better stop by for the 2nd anniversary, man. Here, do me a favor out there, listeners. If you're psychic or alien, or an alien communicator, be sure to send Carl a message and tell him that we need him to come down here for this show. I will be monitoring outside my window tonight during the show, so he better show up. He missed last year's anniversary. So, Carl, don't screw us over 2 years in a row. Tonight, though, we're also going to get into fake news as Jamie Sexton from the brand new Rebel Planet News, based out of Las Vegas, is back. What's the public reading, seeing, hearing, and believing on television, in the newspaper, online, or on the radio? And could it be for a cause for concern? The mainstream seems tainted. That seems to be bleeding into the alternative, but the public is eating it up. For some shows out there, the ratings have never been higher than they are right now. But you, as the public, where can you go for the truth? Jamie is a brand new monthly guest on this show, making his second appearance, which happens to be the third Thursday, of every month. Rebel Planet News is what we call this one. We bring in Jamie Sexton all the way from Las Vegas. Jamie, my man, how you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good, buddy.
I'm pretty good.
Happy to be here on the anniversary for Carl. I hope he shows up for you.
Yeah. Well, your place or my place, But I do have to say this before we even start. Your lovely girlfriend, Tiffany, Are we seeing any unicorns these days, or what's going on there? Because, I mean, the last time you were on, she was ripping me a new one that I didn't think unicorns were real.
Yeah, I think she's still holding out hope for the unicorn. So I don't think she was happy with one of your guest comments suggesting that unicorns might be a rhinoceros or a bull with one horn. I think she took offense to that. So.
Yes, my friend, you're sounding just a tad muffled. I don't know if you're on a headset or not, but if we could.
I am. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Maybe try
if
you could unplug the headset. That would be great. That would be great. I know your arm's probably going to get a little tired, but that's okay.
All right, is that better?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good.
Okay, so Jamie, do you have me? I'm sorry, I got to say this. Do you have me a speaker because we're getting some sort of feedback as well?
Okay. No, I don't. Is that better?
Yeah. There we go.
Okay, good. Good.
All right, my friend. So let's get this thing going, because the last time we had you on, we kind of introduced you to our audience, and you're about trying to get some brand new news out there, something that's straight down the middle, the way the media is supposed to be covered, calling a spade with the Rebel Planet News. For people who haven't heard you before, we've got a bunch of new listeners once again, my friend. Why did you decide to set up Rebel Planet News?
Well, I basically, it's just one of those things that sort of evolved from my own personal interest and some of my professional interest. I've always written, and I guess for the past 25 years, I've been writing about, geopolitics and world politics, and, which obviously leads into some of the darker arenas of what goes on in the world. Or, when I first started doing that, what was suggested was going on in the world, in other words, the people behind the curtain. And, you always want to know if that's true or not. And I got into it and discovered a lot more than I ever thought I would. And when you find out sort of the mechanics of how things work, how the public is sold information and can be manipulated easily, you kind of feel at a loss as to what to do about it. So with the advent of the internet and all the alternative news stations and sources that are out there, as susceptible as those avenues can be to things like false news or misreporting things or getting facts wrong, which does happen quite a bit, I find that it's a refreshing avenue for people, because a lot of times you can get actually more accurate information from those sources than you will the mainstream. And it really shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. And so, but then again, like I said, you get a lot of misinformation too. So I think that the more sources that we can create and rely on for alternative news sources that try to be responsible about, vetting their information and vetting their guests and those sort of things, the better. Because I believe mainstream is kind of controlled by the corporate entities, and they're corrupted on a lot of different levels. It's not just them getting the facts wrong. It's them intentionally getting the facts wrong. They're trying to set agendas based on their corporate sponsors and in some cases government sponsors, etc. So I was inspired to join the ranks of alternative media to try and seek out and offer information that was unfiltered and uncensored, especially especially for corporate gains. So
It is a tough field to be in, Jamie, because, there's a lot of people out there who are making a lot of money on the media, and let's face it, if you go back 30, 40 years, even 20 years, the media wasn't about making money. They were about producing stories, staying down the middle, staying right along the sides of the public. They were the public watchdog, the eyes, the ears, the lawyers, the judges. That's what the media was supposed to be, and somewhere we got lost on that. We're going to get heavy into fake news and what people should be looking for in the media tonight. But first, my friend, today is 420. Now, I don't smoke pot. I got a lot of... I got a lot of friends who do. But... Yeah, me as well. Yeah. You know what? This is the first time ever we will actually celebrate 420 on this show. And, marijuana, I think, whether it's hemp, whether it's marijuana, whatever the part of the plant is, I think it's a very, very important cause. And I know we are in the process up here in Canada of legalizing it across the country. They're just setting up the laws now, and that started a week ago. Is it time, Jamie, in your opinion, to say, look, this isn't a drug, okay? This isn't something that is made by chemicals. This is a natural herb that has so many uses and so many components. Sure, like anything, it has its unhealthy parts. But I think when it comes to marijuana and or hemp, okay, the good definitely outweigh the bad. What's your opinion on that? I'm aside from not partaking in the recreational use of it, I also never really got into studying the pros and cons to be all that qualified about it. But I will say this, just my generic opinion on that is, you're right. It's a natural product, and frankly, I can't see how anyone could possibly justify alcohol being legal, and for recreational use, and not allowing something like marijuana to be legal. That's just it's always been just a really ridiculous sort of double standard there for me. And not only using it for recreational use, but I mean, it's a plant, for fuck's sake. I don't see why somebody can't just go in their backyard and plant it and grow it. I mean, it's a natural product. So yeah, I mean, I like I say, I don't smoke it. I have a lot of friends that do, and the biggest problem I've ever had with them was them cleaning out my refrigerator or driving too slow. That's about it, And, the one thing is that I want to mention is I have friends who use it to battle their epilepsy, use it to battle their glaucoma, use it to battle their pain from cancer, anxiety, depression. I have a lot of friends who use it for a lot of different reasons, and it helps them. And we're learning very quickly, as doctors start to open their mind, that there are some health benefits. I mean, we see the videos all the time, and granted, videos could be staged. I understand that, okay? But we start seeing the benefits that people are having, or that this is having for a lot of people, okay? And when it comes to something that can take away pain from people, not on a stoned level, but people who live with pain every day, or people who have trouble seeing out of their eyes, we have to look more into this. And the fact that they want to keep it prohibited, I think is antiquated. It's antiquated, and it's time that the rest of the mainstream world, especially in the U.S., okay, because the war on drugs, as everybody knows, has not worked. And I think that's been very public. Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you and I had talked about this lightly for a couple of weeks ago, and we sort of touched on it. And as I said earlier, I'm not really qualified to the extent that I've done a ton of homework on this, but for the little bit of writing and research that I have done on it, there's always the arguments back and forth about, well, nothing's been proven, and then other institutions say, yes, it is beneficial for this or that. And so I can't really weigh in on the merits of its medicinal uses and things like that. Although I will say this, that I think that if you want to lump it all together, the marijuana community, in other words, anyone that would be an advocate for legalizing it one way or another, the process of going about trying to get it more available and more legal, I think, ironically, has become more difficult because of the advocates. Not because they're in the wrong, but because they approached it from two different angles. You had the group that was pushing it strictly for recreational use, which seemed like a really steep uphill climb, right? And then you had the medicinal community making medical claims and things like that. And it's kind of hard to, in my opinion, to climb those uphill battles and make something legal that's been deemed illegal for the longest time, when you're hitting it from two different angles, that one seems recreational, one seems medicinal. That's unfortunate for people, for advocates, of course, but I have seen where that dual argument really kind of plays against itself. And I don't know any way around that, but that's unfortunate.
Well, I can tell you this, my friend. I have a good buddy of mine whose daughter suffers from epileptic seizures. She's a beautiful 9-10-year-old girl. She was getting up to 20-30 seizures a day, and she would always have to be monitored. And she was too young to qualify for medicinal marijuana here in Canada. So he literally had to smuggle some in. He's going through a divorce, an ugly divorce. He gets his daughter this medicinal marijuana to help. She goes down to less than one seizure a day over the next couple of months. And his ex-wife actually, in their divorce proceedings, proceeds to tell the judge that he has given his daughter medicinal marijuana, even though he's legally not allowed to. And that's how ugly it can be.
Has the glaucoma. Yeah, oh yeah. It's like I said, it's unfortunate. I think to me, it's a natural product, and we have so many natural products already. I don't know. Of course, they say this, because it inhibits your behavior, and that. But there are a lot of things that do that, and there are a lot of prescription drugs over the counter that do that people abuse every day. So I don't know. It just, to me, this speaks to the larger picture of governments and bureaucracy getting a little bit too much into people's personal business. Like I say, I don't smoke pot. I don't have any intention to, but for those people who do, man, more power to you. And if it helps you medicinally, I don't think anybody should be trying to prevent you from using it.
Add to the fact what hemp can do. Yes, it's a different plant, looks the same, but I mean, the power of hemp, the way it can be created to help eat up carbon monoxide and to help do a lot of good in stopping cutting down, especially old growth forests. I mean, it's something that we have to look at. It definitely is something that we have to look at if we want to start looking at this planet as long term and not some sideshow between North Korea and the rest of the world or something along those lines.
Yeah, definitely. I'm all for it, man. I have more power to you. Like I say, it's 4:20 today, so I'm sure that a lot of people are out there celebrating that just for the occasion. I think I saw a bunch of slow drivers today, Tiffany and I did, from the store.
Well, I feel a little ripped off here because here in British Columbia, we are in marijuana country. We are in marijuana country. And I feel a little ripped off because I didn't smell one doobie burning at all. Not one doobie burning today.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
They let you down, huh?
My country folk have let me down. You know what I'm saying?
Well, there's still time, right? Still a few hours, I think.
Well, we got 2.5 hours, and I can tell you right now, there's no hippie lettuce at my house. So that's just the way it goes.
You know what? Maybe Carl will show up smoking a big fat doobie.
You know what? If Carl shows up, and I'm waiting for Carl, I tell you, he better. I know you laugh at this. I know you laugh at Carl. Okay, but Carl, but Carl that was a serious time, man. That was a serious time.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine how you would feel, my friend, because I know you're probably one of the most skeptical people that I know, and I mean that as a compliment. Okay, your BS meter, moves quickly on anything that you don't feel is right. And I think that's cool, and that's why we do this show. That's why you got Rebel Planet News. But I'll tell you, man, I guarantee you, a guy tough as nails as yourself, who's been there, done that, seen it all, okay, you would crap your drawers if all of a sudden you had an alien gray at your window.
No doubt. No doubt about it, I would. I would, and I'm sitting here, by the way, I don't know if it's when I do the show, I'm sitting here with Spike. He's sitting here watching the monkey. And I think Spike would get a kick out of somebody like Carl visiting us, too. I would definitely crap my pants, no question about it. But I would try to get a picture before he left. So you better have a camera ready tonight if he shows up.
See, that's the problem. I don't know if Carl's showing up. I have extended the invite. I don't even know what they eat. I don't know whether
the anniversary.
I don't know if I should leave tequila at my window or if I should, maybe I don't want to leave him some of the wife's cooking because then he'll never come back. But on the flip side, no, she's okay with that. She'll admit that. She'll admit that. I love her to death, but by God, she wasn't blessed for the kitchen.
Well, I think tequila is. I know tequila is an international peacemaker. I don't know if it's an interstellar peacemaker, but I mean, what do you got to lose? Really?
Mm-hmm. Well, I got a question here from Bob in the SOR Space Travelers Club. He's saying, Dave, did you crap your drawers when you saw Carl? I'm going to tell you right now, almost. Dude, I was literally, okay, I don't know where Spike your monkey is, okay? How far away is Spike from you?
Right now, he's eating, believe it or not, and he doesn't normally do this, but Tiffany gave him a piece of pizza, so he's chowing down on that, kind of listening to us like he's about 5 feet away.
Okay, so add another 3 feet to that, okay, to where Carl is. I mean, to where Spike is.
All right.
That's how far away I was from Carl, man. And I will never in my life forget those black eyes staring at me through the window and seeing that bulbous gray head, man. And it was absolutely freaky. Absolutely freaky. And when I saw him, I damn near fell off my chair because in that 2 to 3 seconds that we were making eye contact, and I'll tell you right now, there was nothing romantic about it whatsoever. You're staring at that, and your eyes are like focusing in, trying to figure out, James, whether or not what you are seeing is real. And
well, of course. Now, it was on 420.
Yes. I wasn't. Personally, I wasn't. But I can tell you this: I literally stared at Carl for like 2-3 seconds, and I jumped back in my chair out of startling when I realized I was looking at, and I kind of shook my head, look again, and he is gone. 3 seconds, man. That's all the time I got with him. 3 seconds, if that. But that memory, man, it is so etched in my memory that it's absolutely,
I hear it.
It's absolutely brutal. It is brutal because when you experience something like that, Jamie, the one thing I can tell you, my friend, is you want it to happen again. Because you got to know if it's real. It's like when you taste good food or have great sex with a person. It's something that you're like, damn, I got to have that steak and lobster again. Or I have to have whatever the thing is that gets you going. I just have to have that. And that's kind of what it's like. In a freakish sort of way, I'm hoping Carl shows up tonight. I'm really in.
Well, I hope he does, too, because I'm pretty sure that'd be an historical event I'd like to be part of, so I'm hoping he does too.
And I know Tiffany is just running around there. Well, what about the damn unicorns? What about them damn unicorns?
You're gonna have to do a unicorn show just for Tiffany.
I am gonna get a unicorn show on just for Tiffany, and normally I don't take callers, but I will let her call in. I will let Tiffany call in for that one. But I can tell you this though. I hope it happens again. I don't know if Carl's going to show up tonight. I've kind of manifested out there to the universe, seeing if that stuff works. Okay, to see if we're able to get that going, and I've got my sensor light out there, all on, getting ready. So if anything walks by, it'll trip it. Let's just hope it actually works. Let's just actually hope that it works. Damn it, Carl.
Matt, you said you don't know what Carl would eat, but I know that there's a whole community out there of what do we call them? Ufologists? Is that what?
Yeah.
What's the proper nomenclature? So maybe they'll have some suggestions that you could leave something out for.
Well, I got a bunch of people in the chat rooms manifesting this. We're going to try the whole manifestation thing and see if that works.
Okay.
So,
because maybe he didn't stick around because you didn't have a doobie or a snack. So maybe give him a reason to hang out if he shows up at least.
I know. I think I'm the only person in British Columbia right now that doesn't have a joint. Well, not the only person, but, one of a few. I'm definitely in the minority here. Oh, hold on. Let me ask Corey in the chat room, because Corey lives down the road from me a couple of miles. Corey, I'm sure you're packing a doobie right now. Let me know if you had 420 on 420. That's all I need to know. Blow the smoke this way, just so we can get it over with. Anyhow, my friend, that's good time. So now we're waiting for Carl. We're waiting for Corey's hippie lettuce cloud to come over my house, if he can make it by a couple of miles.
Nice.
We got it set up.
So he's going to hook you up, huh?
Yeah. No, she says, been there, done that. She's already invested her stash, shall we say. Very greedy.
Right.
Very greedy. Anyhow, my friend, we bring you on tonight on a serious note. Rebel Planet News is your brand new company. You're going to be launching the website officially, rebelplanetnews.com, here in just a couple of months, and you're going to be taking the alternative media by storm. And I'm very glad that, we've been able to partner up and bring you on this show, so that way you can kind of bring our audience the straight goods on a monthly basis, the third Thursday of every month on Spaced Out Radio. When you're searching,
I appreciate the opportunity to do that.
Oh, absolutely. And this is a relationship that's going to continue, because eventually you're going to bring a podcast on board. You're going to do your own podcast. They'll be able to find it on your website. They'll be able to find it on my website. And it's going to be really good as we kind of blend the two shows together. And one of the things that I'm excited about, Jamie, is the fact that your heart is in the right place. You want to bring honest truth back to journalism. In your mind, where did that turn? Where we all of a sudden started using the media, the news, as some sort of sensationalism?
Well, I honestly think the ingredients were there from the beginning. I mean, you know, from its inception, broadcast radio and the press, and even before that, the printed press has always been used by those who would do so as a form of propaganda. Anytime you have a vehicle to reach the masses, the people that control that vehicle, who are behind the steering wheel, can always abuse that vehicle to spread whatever quote unquote truth they want imparted on the public. So I think the ingredients were always there. I think it's just an inherently flawed part of humanity when you have, you know, something as powerful as media. But the greater, I think, abuse of it started when we started trivializing everything. I think it just kind of went hand in hand with the quote unquote moral fabric of our country. You know, the more things started to decay, you know, in the traditional way of American life, Western life, I think that people begin to lose trust in the government and media and institutions like that. And it was just, the environment was ripe to abuse that. And whenever you have corporate controllers, people who control the media, which all media is controlled by some form of a corporate entity. I mean, if you think about it, when television started, for example, you know, you would have television shows with actors and cameramen and makeup artists and limo drivers and set designers and costume designers, and all of those people had to get paid. They all had to get paid. But they didn't get paid by you going down to Sears and Roebuck in the day and buying a black and white television. They didn't get any money from that sale. That was the owner of the television device. The way that all of that business got paid was through advertising. So whatever product is being sold on television, whether it be a soft drink or a dishwashing soap or anything else, all that revenue pays for all of those nooks and crannies, from the big stars all the way down to the guy who sweeps the floor at the studio, through advertising. So they have a lot of power because they pay all the bills. There's just sort of a built-in hazard for abuse when you have that kind of a setup in a situation. So the free press, while I think that there are, and you're a journalist yourself, I know a lot of honest, well-intentioned journalists. But, you know, that doesn't mean that the vehicle, the game, the studios, and the greater picture, and the people who are really the movers and shakers up at the top of the pyramid there have good intentions. And because they're in control of censoring and filtering and deciding what goes on and what doesn't, ultimately, at the end of the day, if they have an agenda to push, they will do so, and they will use the media, be it print, television, movies, music, anything else that they think they can reach their audience with, they will use it.
Do you remember when you realized that there was something a little bit strange about the media? That it just wasn't reporting the big stories anymore? I can remember where it turned for me, and this was actually before I went to broadcasting school, and it was watching the white Bronco chase of O.J. Simpson and Al Cowling way back in 1994. That really did it for me. And then watching the entire O.J. Simpson trial, like everybody else, I was glued to see what was going on, try to catch as much as I possibly could of this real-life soap opera. And for me personally, Jamie, that's where I saw the media turn. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that incident is a great example of what resonates with the public, and that's unfortunate. One of the things I wanted to get into tonight is how we actually watch the news and how they watch us. In other words, we watch the news from an emotion, just like we do everything else in life, pretty much from an intellectual / emotional standpoint. So basically, we are interested in things that affect us. If they don't affect us, we find them boring, and we'll turn the channel. If you're watching something that doesn't interest you, you're not going to watch it very long. But, studios, people who make movies and people who make television and things like that, they do study groups daily. They follow their ratings. How many viewers do they have? They break everything down to demographics. It's how they set their budget. It's how they set their scheduling. It's how they do everything, and unfortunately, including how they deliver the news. And a lot of people don't really look at it this way, but when you watch news programs, and you know me, I don't like to really name names, so I try to not to do that. But all the major networks, all the major news networks that are out there, they have their format set to what keeps someone glued to the television. There's an entertainment factor in there, and people are entertained by it. It's done in such a way that you do get intellectually or emotionally invested in it. But the way they're telling the story, and how much they tell you and how much they hold back, and all of that is really down to a science. They know what works. And so even if there wasn't more sinister agendas attached to the news stories that we get, it would be unfortunate enough that most of it's just reduced down to trivial, like you said with the OJ thing. It's trivial sort of entertainment. And, that's not really why I think we should watch the news. We shouldn't really, how they say when you drive by a car wreck, you don't really want to look, but you have to, kind of thing. And they know how people who are in that business are in that business to be the best they can and to further that business. And it's an institution, so they know what works for their audience and what doesn't, and it's down to a science. So if they're going to, their whole intention, the programmers and the directors and the producers of those shows, albeit new, quote unquote, news shows, their job is to keep you from changing the channel. You need to stay on long enough till the commercials run, right? And to keep you coming back. So they invest, they want to get you emotionally and intellectually invested in personalities, TV personalities, news personalities, and you don't want to. Once you get wrapped up in something, they don't want to lose their audience. Now, again, that's just reducing it down to the one denominator, which is the entertainment value. But I believe there are much more sinister things at play, unfortunately. In other words, when the news and the media are used for propaganda tools, then that's a whole other level of manipulation, and that makes it even worse. But like I said, even if it's just the trivial aspect of it, it's unfortunate that our news has to be packaged in that way.
What do you mean by the media using propaganda tools?
Well, as long as there's been mankind, there's been war. And in any war, you can go back in history and see example after example after example of how newspapers and messengers, even way, way back before any sort of electronic media existed, one side manipulating the other side with misinformation, or even giving misinformation to their own people. And so anytime that you manipulate someone with disinformation to another end, that's unfortunate, and it's used all the time. I believe that the United States, for example, and most of our Western allies have been dragged into conflicts around the world based on not so accurate information. And a lot of times they'll do it to such a degree that everyone gets, viscerally affected. We get very emotionally invested in something that we believe is happening in the world, and we react to it. And we'll support things. Maybe it's a military activity, or maybe it's a new law that gives up one of our rights or something like that, and we'll be all about it. We'll all wave the flag and jump on board because we want to believe that we want to believe that we're doing the right thing and supporting our country, supporting our military, supporting our president, and these things have happened throughout history. And then you find out, days later, weeks later, years later, maybe decades later, you find out, wait a minute, that wasn't the real story. That wasn't what really happened. There's example after example of that throughout history, of the media and in all forms being used as a propaganda tool. And I remember, I believe it was the first Desert Storm, where, and this is well documented. This is not some conspiracy theory. This is fact. You can look it up. It's been documented time and time again that CNN, for example, they had two reporters that were supposedly reporting under attack live on camera in a war zone. And it turns out they were in a studio with a blue screen, and they were doing take after take of their report. Finally, it aired, and the public saw the finished product. But later on, the edit and the blue background and all of that came out. And that's just really unfortunate to manipulate the public like that in those kind of ways. I just think that's not what we need from news sources.
We only got about 2.5, 3 minutes before we got to go to break here, Jamie. But in your time in your research, have you ever talked to a reporter who has told you that their news sources are manipulated?
Yes, I have. I talked to someone who, and I won't mention her name, but this was a few years ago, and she worked for a major network, and I happen to know her, but at the same time, she was public with her story, so anybody can actually look this up if you want. You can find it. She quit a major network and then went on air and explained why she was quitting the network, and it was for that very reason. But I knew it was happening. I knew she was going to do it before. But and other people have explained to me how they get a lot of their directives, or how their stories will be edited, and huge parts of their stories will be omitted, or just a lot of different ways to manipulate and dictate what information they're allowed to share, or even pursue. They're like, no, don't follow that story. We want you to follow this one. because they want it's almost as if they're creating a narrative at times, and when they do that, those are when you got to. Those are the times, in my opinion, when you really got to look out for the news media when you see an agenda at play. And we can get into that after the break. But I've seen quite a bit of that in the media, where a clear agenda is trying to be forwarded through the media.
I still can't believe, my friend, and we got about 60, 70 seconds left. I still can't believe that when I watch American news coverage, that we have news agencies basically leaning to the left or to the right, when the job of the media is to be neutral and center. Like, to me, that just doesn't make sense. I just don't get that.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, too. I think that just like our political system, our media system has followed suit. I'm not even really sure which came first, the chicken or the egg. But, yeah, they, the Western world has really become that dichotomy, one versus the other. Red versus blue, and it's in our politics, it's in our media, it's in just about every fabric of our social life, and it's a patented formula, and they benefit from it, the controllers. So.
And we'll get more into that right after the break. Jamie Sexton is our guest. His monthly feature called The Rebel Planet News comes here on Spaced Out Radio the third Thursday of every single month. Jamie's going to go the distance tonight, so get your questions ready. Put them in capital letters. If you're one of the chat rooms, I will get to them. You're listening to Space Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back right after this.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
The third Monday of every month, Spaced Out Radio is going to bring you a different look at everything paranormal. Welcome to The Reporters. Jim Mallard, Vanessa Hogel, Denise Garcia, and Christina George join me, Dave Scott, for a look at the weird and strange from the other side of the microphone. We'll break down ghosts, UFOs, cryptids, and the people investigating them. The paranormal media has never been heard like this. Come listen to The Reporters.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spaceoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest. From Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up, enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the show, we head to Phoenix, Arizona. We're going to be talking the Phoenix Lights with David Spinks. It's going to be absolutely awesome. His personalized story of where he was when the Phoenix Lights appeared on March 13th, 1997. It's going to be great. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. Getting some breaking news here right now. We have hit 1,000 followers. 1,000 followers on Spreaker. It's taken 1 year to hit 1,000 followers. I'm pretty impressed, Space Travelers. Thank you so much. Find out who it is for me. I want to know who number 1,000 is. So if you're in there, please pop into the Spreaker chat room and let me know who you are. I want to mention you on air. I would appreciate that. And my Oilers have just tied things up 3-3 with San Jose. I'm pretty excited by that right now. Thank you so much for filling me in. Hey, we want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia. We're also live on 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. We're also live in Las Vegas on Renegade Talk Radio. We're live in California, Arkansas, on KTLK, The Fringe FM. As well, we are live on Revolution Radio. The Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Ulotricious. Ulotricious is your password. Don't know what it means. I don't think anybody really does. But Ulotricious is your password for tonight as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio like Canadian Joe, Eric, John, Mr. Skeptic himself. They're all in there tonight chatting away. We appreciate that. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. We're also on TalkStream Live, RadioGuide.fm, and Stitcher. Our website is SpacedOutRadio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including reading up on the Encounter Online, our newspaper that we have going. You could sign up to become an SOR Space Traveler for $5 a month, or head over to Patreon.com, and for $1, just $1, you could become a patron of Spaced Out Radios. Check it out today. The Rebel Planet News is the news section that is coming online by Jamie Sexton out of Las Vegas. It's his brand new invention that's going to bring straight truth back to the media. Jamie is a monthly guest on this show, appearing the third Thursday of every month. Jamie, welcome back.
Hey.
Right
How
on.
you doing, buddy?
Good to have you with us. Right before the break, we were talking about how you had a reporter friend actually come out saying the news is fake, that's why she quit the business. When you heard that, did you have any prior inclination that it was going that way, or was that where you finally decided that, man, there's something bigger to this than what we know?
No, I had an interest in the corrupt media long before her story came along. I like I said earlier, I've known for the longest time that the media was an instrument of corporate entities, government entities. I mean, the media gets its licensing from the FCC, which is a government agency. So, that in itself tells you that they're under regulation from the government. So, and they're paid for by government and corporate institutions. So, it doesn't surprise me at all when these stories come out at all. In fact, to me, I watch the news probably completely different than most people do. Because I've followed their corruption for so long, it's almost like I can identify when a story is being used to further a particular agenda. Almost, and I'm not always correct on it, or I'm not always able to substantiate that. But for the most part, when there's a really heavy agenda at play, not only do I question the way the story is being reported, but a lot of times I'm questioning whether what I'm watching is actually real or a fabricated story to further an agenda, because the media can be used in that way too.
What about the FCC regulations? Do you think they have something to do with this?
Well, I don't know if the FCC as an institution necessarily dictates content, and I certainly don't think they do day to day. But I, somewhere in the halls of management, in the bigger media institutions, I think that things are manipulated, and the FCC, being a government agency, may in fact, have some hand in what content is being shown to the public or offered to the public, especially in certain times. But the laws have changed over the years as far as like licensing. I believe it was 1995 or 98 when the laws changed a little bit about who could open up or who could own different agencies, and media consolidation became a thing in the industry where certain corporations were buying up multiple broadcasting studios and agencies. And now you've basically got a handful of corporate owners, literally down to 4 or 5, maybe 6 major corporations that own pretty much all of the major media, especially news outlets that the public sees. And that, to me, when you have all the eggs in a few baskets like that, and then all of those baskets are sort of affiliated with each other, it leaves a lot of room for controlled information, and it sort of leaves the stage closed for fair reporting and honest reporting.
Do you have any examples that you can give where you feel that the media has let the public down?
Well, I feel they do it daily, to be honest with you. I think when you're talking about, a lot of people, they don't get their news from local news agencies. A lot of people, because national news agencies have become such a big thing, and I think that's partly due because they work so hard on the entertainment format. In other words, like I said earlier, a lot of people tend to get invested in those national news figures, those personalities. So they'll tune into the bigger networks than they do the little ones. But I think you do it every day. I think that any time that you waste time talking about trivial things, like what the Kardashians are doing, or any soap star or TV star, or when you waste time talking about trivial matters like that, unless you're watching an entertainment, like you're watching a show for entertainment value as opposed to watching it to try to get news, I think they let you down every day in that aspect. And not only that, but I also think that they trivialize the subjects that we should take serious. In other words, even if they're reporting on something that is not supposed to be a trivial matter, let's say it's a political candidate or a bill that's being introduced, or some business of the government or business of the people that we would be interested in. They'll sit around with a table full of talking heads and shred that story up to the point where it's no longer even about the substance of what the people should be interested in. It's not about the meat of the bill or the substance of the bill. They all get into political bickering. And I think that it seems to happen organically, like when you have a round table or a panel of guests on a news show, you'll have 2 to 4 to 6 guests and a host of the show, and everybody's talking over each other, and they're all taking political jabs at each other. And, you know, what that essentially does is it's feeding your bias. And everybody has a bias. We talked earlier about the red versus the white. You know, everything's cut down the middle. And that happens in the media too. And, you know, those shows become entertainment shows based on, it's almost like watching a wrestling match. You're watching the red versus the left and who can shout over the other one the most. And it really subtracts from what you should really be focused on an issue, as opposed to, you know, everybody's rooting for their team, you know, is what it kind of becomes. And that process becomes trivialized. You know, some speaker will come on and, oh, I can't stand that guy, or, oh, this is my guy. You know, it's like they're investing in characters rather than the substance of what's going on with the business of government or the business of news. And that's unfortunate to trivialize things to that degree, where you feel like you're watching a soap opera nightly rather than news.
Well, and that's where we go back about 10 years ago when I was still in terrestrial radio, where this new term came around the media, and it was called infotainment. And
exactly.
at that point, that's where even we in our newsroom saw the fact that all of a sudden we were reporting on, you know, what Britney Spears was doing, or what was happening with OJ, or what was happening with any type of Hollywood celeb, you know, who was divorcing who. And it was weird because the more we put that crap on, the higher the ratings went. And that's what caught the attention of the accountants who were running the business, which of course affects sponsorship. So, like in my 10 years in a newsroom, never once did I have our stories edited. Never once did I have any of my stories edited that I just could not, for the life of me, have a story pulled because of what I was about to say. That had nothing to do with it. But that's up here.
Right.
Okay? And I understand that 49th parallel border, there's a lot of strange that happens on the other side sometimes. But that word infotainment crosses over very easily. So when that word started becoming part of the media dictionary, and the accountants who are now running these places, rather than true journalists, rather than radio DJs, rather than former television news hosts or anchors, we seem to have gotten away from the importance of having that 6 p.m. newscast in the evening, or having that 8 a.m. morning drive news update, because apparently the public was sick of the news. Because the numbers went up, Jamie, when they started going more infotainment. So how do you describe that?
Well, it goes back. I think it plays right into what I'm saying, is that is their bread and butter. So, aside from any dictating necessarily of what a reporter may or may not want to air on any given day, on a regular day, or even using the media as a propaganda tool or to further any type of agenda, like I said earlier, just the fact that everything is trivialized and, as you said, infotainment based, that's short selling the public as far as I'm concerned. Now, I think that if done correctly, you could have both. In other words, they could, there's room to be entertaining and also informative, like genuinely informative. But I don't think they're interested in that. I don't think that, a lot of times I feel like stories are short-sighted deliberately. They'll focus on talking points and things that they know are going to affect the public and keep them interested in the soap opera rather than the meat of the story. Because let's face it, I mean, government business and legislation and, you know, real politics and things like that can be quite boring. And most people would tune out to that stuff. Most people are not sitting around daily watching C-SPAN and things like that. So, you know, when you watch those bigger news programs like that, they kind of have to do what they do, at least to some degree, to keep their audiences. I just think that they do, I think they short sell the information or dictate the information a little more deliberately. I don't think it's I don't think it's the entertainment part of it is in itself is what's subtracting from the real stories that we should get and the truth of the matter. I think that they distract us a lot of times with the entertainment stuff. And that's the unfortunate part. I think that, and you and I talked about this on the last show, I think there's a lot of times when people report stories, they'll get details wrong or facts wrong. And that's unfortunate. But that's part of the business. That's going to happen from time to time. And, you know, a lot of times people will be responsible about that and come back and do a retraction or an adjustment on the story to let the public know that they made a mistake. But I think the bigger tragedy is that when they deliberately lie to the public or mislead the public or use the media as a propaganda tool to further an agenda, and all the while they're doing it, they're throwing this entertainment value. It's almost like a magician trick. You know, look at this hand, watch this hand, while this one over here is doing something it shouldn't. And I think that the public needs to be more aware of that. One of the ways that I sort of trained myself to watch the news is kind of divorce myself from all bias. What you can't do as a person. You have to, it's something you have to constantly work on, because we all have bias and we form them and strengthen them every day. But you kind of got to set that aside when you really want to look at something discriminately. If you really want to look at something objectively, and you really want to learn about what's going on, you kind of got to divorce yourself from your bias, political bias, religious bias, the ethnic bias. You kind of got to, if you walk into a situation, because all of those things can dictate how you feel about something emotionally. So if you're watching information that you're trying to gain something from, and you're watching it from a position of bias, you're going to take all that into you. And all that information that's coming at you, you're going to filter that through your bias. And so the story is automatically going to lean one way or another in your own psyche, based on all that bias. So you really got to check that at the door when you're trying to learn something. Otherwise, you're not going to be open-minded about anything. You're going to lock into that demographic that they've created for you. You know, you're going to fit into one of these, few categories of people that they know that you fit into, and they're gonna appeal to your emotions, and they're gonna appeal to your particular brand of intellect and taste, and you're gonna feel like you have a dog in the race. They've done a really, really good job. The system has, meaning government and media and other institutions like that. They've done a really good job over time of kind of dividing everybody into two general boxes. Not very many boxes, left and right. And I believe that most people, when they really speak, when you talk to someone about things and they break down their bias and they really speak openly, most people don't lean as hard left or as hard right as they can be manipulated to do on the occasion. In other words, when it's election time or, there's some debate about something. But in those moments, when the time is right, the media will manipulate people and force an entire demographic to lean over to one side and the other demographic to lean over to the other side. It's almost a science to get it narrowed down to one of two categories. It's ridiculous in a country that we claim to be open and free that, we only have two parties to elect from year after year after year after year. I just don't believe that we're that black and white. But, we get squeezed into one of those two categories every time.
Do you feel it's a fault of all media, Jamie, or do you feel it's a fault of mainly national broadcasts or national newspapers? Because the local news tends to focus more on what's happening in their city, in their community, in their province or state, rather than what is happening on a national level. It seems to me, as I look as an outsider down below, that it seems to be more on a national level that we see a lot of these media atrocities, if we could call them that, happening.
Yeah, I agree with that. Although you got to think about it like this: if you have, again, I hate to name names, but let's just say Fox News. Okay, Fox has a national news network. That's their mothership there for the news, for national news. And then they have a whole bunch of local affiliates, smaller affiliates. And you're right, those smaller affiliates, like I saw in my Fox News here in Vegas today, the police were chasing down some animal that was running around a grocery store parking lot because they didn't know what it was. It was some animal that's not indigenous to our region. So all day that story's been dominating the local news. So you're right. They're not really selling us the big ticket items. However, because they are an affiliate of the bigger network, if they do comment on something that's happened nationally, the commentary they're going to make on that is not independent. In other words, a local reporter wasn't involved in the creation of that story or following down that story. So they're basically going to read down the notes from the parent company. That's the way it works. So yeah, I would agree with you that you're probably going to get more accurate news from the local news station, although it's not going to be really it's not going to be substantial national news. You see what I'm saying? So, if you want to learn what's going on in the world and what's going on in your country with the business of the people, you're probably going to get that news from a few sources, which is the corporate sources, the big sources. If you want to find out what this animal is they've been tracking down all day in the grocery store parking lot, you're probably going to get the real story, but you're going to get that from your local guy. So, it's all like I said, it's all a formula. It's a business. So, it's like a corporation, though, if you think about it. Like, how many times have you heard of a corporation, whether it be in your country, Canada, or even in the U.S., or anywhere in the world, for that matter, where a big corporation decides that it's going to lay off 90% of its employees, or it's going to go completely out of business. And it's got thousands of employees. Yet these people most of the employees aren't even aware that their business is going out of business until sometimes the day that they close the door. And maybe some of the upper management knows, but it's all hush-hush. You know what I mean? It's not until days, sometimes hours, days, or weeks, if they're lucky, that they find out that they're out of a job and out of a pension and everything else. Thousands of people. That happens quite a bit. So if you think about media networks in that context, you can think about, the fact that, the everyday average journalist or reporter may be doing his job very honestly. He may be going out and getting the story and writing it up. And, as long as he's not crossing swords with the national agenda or the bigger network, then, he's probably not going to ruffle any feathers at the network. But if it's a national story, that story most likely is going to be controlled from higher up in the chain. So,
what about clickbait? We see a lot of clickbait that leads to a lot of fake news out there. When did this become so relevant, and have you looked into it?
I'm not even familiar with the term. What is it?
Well, clickbait is when you see that headline, oh my God, they didn't know this was going to happen, and you click on the story because you think you recognize it, and it pops up to a bunch of different ads, and it pops up to some fake news story that,
Oh, yes. I know exactly what you're talking about now. Yeah, that, you know what? I was commenting on that the other day. I see more and more web-based stuff like that now that really drives me insane. I won't go back to sites like that. I absolutely will not go back. We're setting up Rebel Planet News now, as you know, and I'm dealing with, different webmasters and different things going into the suit to create this thing. And, obviously, we've got to have sponsors as well. We've got to run advertisements on our site to help pay for things. But, there's, as you know, and you and I talked about this, there's different packages and companies that offer those services and ways to do it and ways to technically set up your site. So, you can have things as soon as somebody types in their domain name, an ad pops up in your face, and, it gets really cluttery and really messy, and it's really, to me, that it really insults me when I go to a website thinking that I'm going to be able to read it. Even if I'm trying to read something stupid or trivial, it really bugs me if I click on it and it's like, I don't know, now I'm lost in some rabbit hole on their website. I don't even know how I got there, and I can't get out unless I watch some advertisement or something. It's just ridiculous. It's getting ridiculous. So I wasn't familiar with the term clickbait, but yeah, that's really annoying and dishonest.
Let's get to a question from Ron from the prairies in Saskatchewan. And trust me, man, you can see your dog running away for hundreds of miles around there. It's so flat. Ron is asking, are the fake media journalists paid large amounts of money? Is that what keeps them there?
Well, if you're talking, it's funny you say the term fake media because that's a fairly new term. It's out on the scene. I tend to think, quite honestly, that the major networks are more fake than the alternative ones. That's just where I come down on it. But yeah, I think that they are paid large sums of money. But I don't necessarily think that always the guy. If you know how these networks work, and I know you do, Dave, because you used to work in them. But if you've been to a television studio or a news studio and you've watched the daily business of how they schedule their day and their production and the way things work, it's usually not the guy that's sitting in front of the camera or sitting in front of the microphone that did all the legwork for that story. On the local level, that's true. On the local level, yes, you'll have sleuths. You'll have your old school journalists going out and tracking down stories and riding out in the van with their camera guy and getting the local story. But on the national level, the bigger stories, it doesn't work that way. You're not going to see Bill O'Reilly on the floor of the Senate gathering the story. He's got people bringing him the information daily. And that goes across the board for all those national level people. They're in the production business. So, those stories come fast and they come hard, and they're decided on in a formula-based manner. So when they sit there and construct what's going to be offered on the show, it's done according to a formula. And of course they're paid big money, but I don't think the decisions as to what's going to be told that night, what's going to be talked about, what the narrative is, and all of the boundaries of that narrative are necessarily the decision of the journalist. In other words, the person the talking head, the person in front of the camera. I think that part of the corruption of that is that it's not their job. In other words, they'll sit there and recite. You know, they know the narrative. They're aware of it, even if it's a false narrative, even if it's an agenda-based thing. They're aware of it because most of them are intellectual people, so they know what they're doing. They know what they're part of. But they're not really creating that. I think it's a higher level. And yeah, of course they get paid a lot of money. Any TV personality is paid a pretty good amount of money. But it's the studio, it's the producers and the people higher up who dictate. If you're suggesting payoffs and things like that, and they would probably happen at a little bit of a higher level. In other words, the people who are producing the show, who are deciding what the talking head is going to talk about and what scope to keep it in. And let's talk about this and not that. And let's don't mention this, but be sure to get this and that sort of thing. Yeah.
A lot of journalists, when they go to college or university to get their degrees in journalism, doesn't matter which branch, I don't see university professors training them, Jamie, to get into this field and say you're going to have to pick whether or not you're on the left or the right. I know journalism professors in the United States. I've had a couple of them on this show who said that in a million years they would never teach their students to be what journalism is today in the United States. So where are they being taught this type of fake news?
Well, I don't. Again, there's so many people that involved in the process of delivering the news to you. So, I think it's a lot. Like I said earlier, it comes down to that kind of corporate structure. When something becomes a bureaucracy, a lot of times the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. So you might have, a whole team of honest journalists, but they want to keep their jobs, and they're gonna follow the stories they're told to follow, and they're gonna, being in the business that there's a lot of editing that goes on. Just because you go out and write a story, especially on that national level. Now, on a local level, you might have a whole lot more freedom with the story that you go out and write down. But on the national level, when you go out and get a story and bring it into the desk, that thing is going to be packed up and sliced up and chopped up a million different ways and considered before it airs. And it's going to go in very fast order. And it's sort of out of your hands, because on the national level, national news agencies, like I said earlier, it's generally not the person who you see in front of the camera who was out that day gathering the story. Generally, you've got people going out, who are honest journalists. But, it's generally not one reporter either. Like if you have, let's say, one of these national news agencies wants to follow up on a story having to do with something that's going on in clinic. They're not going to send out one of their correspondents. They're going to send out 10 of them because they can afford to do that. So they're going to send out 10 different affiliates. And all those people are going to bring their input back to the suit. And they're going to formulate that story how they decide it should be delivered, whether it be honest or dishonest, whatever. That's just the way the corporate structure of news works. It's just a huge institution. They got things down to a science. They got it down to a formula, and they deliver it a certain way, and they can slant it or spin it any way they choose to do. It's their station, So, but I agree with you. I think a lot of journalists go to school because they have interest in delivering a story the right way, the honest way. I don't think anybody sets out to be dishonest when they start doing that job. And a lot of times, I think a lot of people find themselves in a situation and maybe even have suspicions that their stuff is not being delivered the way it was, that the information is not being reported the way that it was gathered. But what are they going to do? They want to keep their job. And some people will fold under that pressure and just sort of become part of the process and just, not be a squeaky wheel.
Do you think that every journalist is corrupt? Take a guy in your area.
Oh, no.
Take a guy in your area who I respect highly in George Knapp.
Right.
Okay. There's a guy.
Go
ahead.
No, I don't believe at all that all journalists are corrupt. Wouldn't mean to suggest that at all. It's not even the journalists themselves that I think are the problem. I think it's the most of it, as your listener asked earlier, is on the national level as opposed to the local level. I think a lot of that becomes corporate. In other words, you don't have one guy going out and getting the story all day. When this guy going to get up at 3 or 4 in the morning, go track down the story, bring it back? It's edited, and what's he going to do? Do a quick lunch and a nap, and then stay up until 9 o'clock at night to deliver you the story? No, it doesn't work that way. You've got a whole lot of people involved when it comes to national news. A lot of things go into the pot to bring you a show story. So I don't fault journalists who are true journalists. I believe there's a lot of people out there who really want to go out and get a story. But even saying that, if you take a journalist who's gone to school, as you suggested earlier, and they're taught journalistic skills, just basic raw journalistic skills, and their heart and their mind is in the right place. Once they join an affiliation, because, at some point they're going to have to get online and get a job, and they get a job with one of these institutions, and they go out and get assignments. And, they want to keep their job, and they want their paycheck. And they've got a boss or 2 or 3 or 4. And, so the way they do their job is going to be dictated by how the corporation they work for does the job. And that's just the way that goes. As far as the corruption part about it and where the corruption lies, I don't think it necessarily lies with the journalist. Now, over time, one of those journalists who becomes a company man might learn how it's done, and wink, wink, he's part of the, he may become part of it. But even in that, just take the sensational part of it. After a while, I don't know, there was I wish I could remember the name of it. There was a show I watched recently. I'll try to remember the name of it before we're done here. But I watched a show where a journalist was out gathering a story. Well, actually, it wasn't a journalist. He went and got himself a camcorder and caught some incident on tape, videotape, and brought it to a local news agency. And when he did, the lady said, "Oh, I'll buy that from you." And so he went and bought himself a video camera at a pawn shop and started following people around and got himself a police scanner and following stories And it was a really interesting movie because, you saw how the producer of that channel was telling him, no, we want to see more gore, more blood, and this and that. And eventually this guy ends up going into someone's house and videotaping the murder and got that on camera. So, of course, that's a fictional movie. But my point is that, this guy realized there was money in bringing the producer of that channel whatever story she wanted. And so, it kind of works that way. You feed the corporate machine. If everybody's on the same team, but they're all working towards one end. And generally, it's not the journalist who's out on the beat gathering the story who's really dictating how that story is going to be fed to the public. It just doesn't work that way on the national level.
Mm-hmm. Facebook Live has taken a lot of criticism over the last little bit as people go to filming their own. Are you okay with your phone there? Because it seems to be scratching up quite a bit.
Yeah, sorry about that. I was adjusting it.
No worries.
Facebook Live, you were saying?
Facebook Live recently took a lot of heat earlier this week for a gentleman who actually recorded on live Facebook committing a murder.
Yes.
Now, a lot of people have turned to YouTube, have turned to Facebook, and a lot of these groups like Periscope and so have you to report what is going on in immediate time.
Right.
How dangerous, though, is that for the public to be playing with something along those lines when they're now making themselves part of the story rather than having a true journalist explain what is going on?
Well, that's an interesting question. If you just happen to be somewhere and something is happening, I don't think you could find anything more real or honest than maybe filming it and putting it out to the public immediately, unfiltered, uncensored, whatever. You're not necessarily reporting on it. You're just showing what happened. However, the danger of that, I suppose, there could be different elements of danger, but one of them could be that you're sort of seeing something completely out of context. Depending on what you see and how much of it you see. If you see a police stop and, I'm just going to hypothesize something here, but let's say you see a police stop and the suspect gets out of the car and opens fire on the officers for 2 minutes, and shooting at officers. And then all of a sudden he tosses his gun aside because he runs out of ammunition. And then somebody decides to start filming at that point, and they see the police running up and tackling the guy and being rough with him and whatever they do. You don't have those first, 60 seconds before that completely changes the story. You understand what I'm saying? So that would be a good example of the public seeing something out of context. It's not really reporting. I mean, it's real, but it's not reporting. So I don't know how you really prevent that though with today's technology. So I think it's just one of those things that we have to learn to self-discriminate. You know what you're looking at. How and think about it in those terms. Don't rush to judgment. If you know that you're looking at if I was looking at a Facebook Live video that sort of illustrated what I just described, I would probably consider those things I just said. Whereas somebody else may just react emotionally and say, oh my God, they beat that poor guy up, not realizing that he just tried to kill 2 or 3 officers. You see what I'm saying? So I don't know that you can prevent it. I think that you just have to. It's just one of those things that we've got to start training ourselves not to react to, but to learn to, that was part of my point earlier tonight. It was just so we need to start training ourselves to sort of look at information more objectively, more openly, consider other things in all angles, and not react to things so emotionally, so quickly, with so much bias. Because a lot of times we don't know what we're looking at, and a lot of times we don't know if what we're looking at is real. And there are a lot of links in that chain that can be broken. Dishonesty, misreporting, misinformation, ulterior motives, all sorts of things can come into play when you're getting information that may affect your life in one way or another. So you got to keep all that in mind when you're watching or listening to news. You need to be more objective and not react, because reacting, a lot of times reacting will close off a part of your objectivity. And if someone means to dictate that, if someone means to manipulate you in that way, then they realize that, and some of these bigger corporations, they know that. They know how to slant the story to fulfill an agenda. There's been story after story after story of shootings over the past 8-10 years. And, I always sort of wonder and smell a rat whenever one of these unfortunate events takes place. And within 5 minutes, you've got 6 talking heads around the national news table having a gun rights debate. That's not the story. The story is what is going on at the mall right now. How many victims are there? Who's hurt? Do I know these people? Did they get the suspect? You know what I mean? Or should everybody be on the lookout? Is there an alert out for this? You know what I mean? The story isn't a gun debate within 5 minutes. You don't even know what happened. And that's generally when I start to smell a rat. I can smell an agenda. There's like a political agenda immediately unfolds during a story, and then the story is no longer even about the story. It's about those agendas, and that's when a lot of times I can spot that I think the media is being used to manipulate the public to further a particular agenda one direction or another.
Either way, though, it does bring in a huge problem with social media, what happened here. And if you haven't heard the story before, a gentleman named Steve Stevens, who was a job counselor for teens and young adults, shot a retiree in Cleveland collecting aluminum cans on Sunday, and he posted the video of the murder on his Facebook page. He then went on the run. He has since, I believe, committed suicide. In Pennsylvania, they found him. But the fact is, this is the danger of what we are starting to see on social media, where everybody thinks that we got to be live 24/7. And if that's the way it's going,
of course,
it's a dangerous aspect of the use of social media. I mean, we talk about, the dangerous aspects of alcohol or drugs or drinking and driving. Well, what about this now?
Yeah, I agree with you. But, there's not really much that we can do about the technology. It's there, and it's going to be there. And if Facebook stops doing it, someone else is going to pick it up. And in that particular case that you're talking about, it was the murderer himself was the one that filmed that, not a bystander. I mean, he's the one that filmed that, and he meant for that gruesome act to be shown on the internet. He wanted it to be live, and unfortunately, I just don't see any way technically or legally to, at this point, prevent something like that from happening. I don't really think that should be our focus. On the other hand, I do believe that Facebook should have taken that down immediately. And not only that, they should have departments that do that. I can tell you one thing. If you insult or hurt somebody's feelings of a particular demographic on some social media forums like Facebook, if somebody gets offended by something, I've had posts of mine that were taken out of context, were removed within minutes of me posting them. Yet someone can murder someone on Facebook Live, and that video doesn't come down for hours. As far as I'm concerned, that's a flawed system. So I think that it falls. It really, the responsibility really falls on Facebook and other sites like that who offer those live broadcasting features. It really comes down to them policing that. They should be responsible for that. As far as saying, well, nobody can shoot live video anymore, well, there's really no way to police that unless you just, start picking it away from site after site, and then another site will spring up. So, but I do think that when it comes to certain things, like if I was in a position of authority at Facebook and I realized that was happening, within minutes that would have been taken down, because it's a gruesome thing. Not only that, but it can be used as evidence. And
on that note, Jamie, I'm going to get you to hold on that. We're going to continue this talk on social media aspect right after this. Jamie Sexton is our guest tonight. He's from Rebel Planet News. His site will be launching in just a couple of months. New alternative media, 24/7. It's going to be a good time. Jamie joins us the third Thursday of every month right here on the Mighty SOR. So his next date will be on May 18th. And we'll be right back on Spaced Out Radio right after this break. While you're doing that, while you're waiting for us, make sure you go on over to our website, spacedoutradio.com. Check out the really cool features we have, like the Encounter Online. Read up on that. Check out Bumblefoot. And I'm going to go check out and see if Carl's hanging around somewhere. Haven't seen him. No movement. The sensor light outside hasn't turned on. Damn it, Carl. Where are you? We'll be right back.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit. And expect a miracle.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories. From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride tonight. Tomorrow night on the program, we finish things off talking about the Phoenix Lights. David Spinks is going to join us. He was in the Air Force in Tucson, Arizona, stationed when the call came in that there were aliens flying around. Very interesting story indeed. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. Hey, we want to welcome in our terrestrial stations. WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia. We're also live in New Orleans on 107.7 FM, the United Public Radio Network in over 160 countries around the world. We have just joined, as of this week, KTLK, the Fringe FM online. We're live in Las Vegas on Renegade Talk Radio. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Ulotricious. Ulotricious is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every single night right here on Spaced Out Radio. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to chat with me live as well during the show. You can give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can tune us in on TuneIn, download this show and others from iTunes. We're also on RadioGuide.fm, TalkStream Live, and Stitcher. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. While there, we have a plethora of features for you, including checking up on our new paranormal news wire, The Encounter Online. We would appreciate if you check out our original stories there. You can also join the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. And you can head on over to patreon.com. For as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of SORs as well. Tonight we talk with Jamie Sexton. He is the owner, producer, writer for Rebel Planet News, a new website that is going to launch in the alternative media this summer. We appreciate Jamie taking the time on because he comes on this show the third Thursday of every month. Jamie, welcome back.
Good to be here, buddy.
We wrapped up last hour talking about the effects of social media on the media, especially with a murder that just happened where the gentleman actually posted the murder that he videotaped on his Facebook page, on Facebook Live, as a matter of fact. And you had said something that, we're in that day and age. We are in that day and age where people are going to do silly things like that. Now, it's not going to happen all the time, but still, it is happening. Now, I realize listening in North America and living in North America, we have a thing called freedom of speech. But is this taking social media freedom of speech a little too far? And should it be regulated?
Well, I don't know how you would regulate something like that. Again, it's a social media platform where people are meant to socialize, not to, necessarily go out and commit crimes to broadcast. So that's just one of the hazards, I suppose, of this new type of technology is that, people may choose to do something unfortunate like that, and it's horrible. I can't imagine how many kids might have been exposed to that, or family members of Mr. Goodwin might have been exposed to that. But I just think that, I don't really see a practical way in anything to police that or to regulate that. Like I said, I think that Facebook should self-regulate that. I've heard stories on some social media formats of people committing suicide on live, doing things like that, and that's unfortunate as well. I think that if Facebook were to get a report of something like that happening, they should immediately shut that Facebook down, make it private, because not delete it, because maybe the police need something for evidence or something like that. But and then they can figure that out after the fact. But as far as the public is concerned, I think that the responsibility comes down to the owner of that particular social media to police that sort of thing. I don't think there's a way to regulate that necessarily. I think it's just one of the hazards of the day and age that we live in, this technology that we have.
I can understand that, but it also opens up Facebook to a very large lawsuit here as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it potentially could. I don't know particularly what angle something like that may be pursued, but hypothetically, I could see things like that happening. And so that's why I say, it should really, the responsibility should really fall with them. They're the ones offering that technology to the public. And if that's going to create a hazard, then they need to be responsible for cleaning that up. And I find no excuse whatsoever for that video remaining up on his Facebook or on YouTube or anything else. I think YouTube and Facebook need to be held accountable for that material having been up for that long. That falls on them.
And you know what's silly about that? And on a personal sense, I get a little pissed off when I see things like that, okay, and hear of stories like this. Because here we have an act of murder where someone is losing their life on social media. And yet, I know there are times where I've been blocked in my own rooms for apparently spamming myself by inviting our guests into the chat rooms. Because apparently I tagged too many people too fast. It seems like they are more worried about spamming than they are about this video or things like this happening. And you knew it was about to happen. I mean, how stupid can we be or not be? You know what I'm saying? You're not realizing that something like this wasn't about to happen. It was only a matter of time.
Right.
Just like those kids, beating the crap out of that handicapped kid because he was white. Right. And they tortured him for like 2 days. At some point...
Yep.
At some point, there has to be some sort of guidelines, and you can't hide behind the Constitution of the United States or the Constitution of Canada or whatever you want to call it. You just can't hide behind that over people acting like vigilantes.
Well, I agree with you, but then we get into the hazardous territory of regulation, and I am not for that at all. I am not for government regulation in the least. I do, you said hide behind the Constitution. I don't hide behind it. I stand with it, and I support it 100%. I'm not for anything that gives up more freedoms. In other words, the government or any institution regulating what we do or what we see. The incident that we just described, which was unfortunate and gruesome, I don't believe that should have been splattered all over social media. However, I don't think that requires government regulation. I think that requires an outfit like Facebook and YouTube, those corporations, those companies need to take the responsibility to do the right thing and not put that up. And if they choose to continue to do those sort of things, then they need to be sued. Someone needs to take them to task. In other words, them as an institution, they need to pay penalties for their actions in not being careful about those sorts of things. But to say that we need a new law or a new regulation, see, then we get into the slippery slope of more and more control. And so it's sort of one of those things that's self-fulfilling. And one of the things that I am very, very big on, I'm a huge proponent of freedom of speech. And, alternative media falls right into that. Because we start regulating things like that, and the next thing you know, you and people like you and me are out of business. You know what I mean? We're not going to be allowed to talk about things that we want to talk about openly if we start supporting regulation. I think it falls on us as individuals and as individuals who have these websites and sources of information to regulate ourselves, and that's where I fall down with that. I don't think that I don't think we need a new law or anything like that. We have enough laws on the books already. People need to start, using their heads and doing the right thing. So someone at the chain of command of Facebook, I'm absolutely certain within an hour at the very least of that incident knew that was going on. And I'm absolutely certain within 5 minutes they could have directed someone to take that page and video down. And the same thing with YouTube. So that doesn't require regulation. That requires people doing the right thing at the right time.
I guess this is where the difference in countries comes around, because if something like that happened and Facebook was a Canadian country, there'd probably be a law going in almost immediately on that, because we just, at times we feel that we just can't police ourselves, and I think that becomes a little bit untrustworthy in putting that lack of regulation in. But on the flip side, I do understand the freedom of speech is very important for all of us. It's our say, it's our freedom to be able to do what we want and say what we want and how we feel at any time without being penalized. And I agree with you there. I totally agree with you there. But at what point is enough enough? We have a man's life that was ended on camera live. And that as even as a Facebook user, and I use Facebook a lot of hours every day because of this show, I really have a problem with that.
I agree, but you use the term when is enough enough, and that's that's a very tricky mindset to get into. And I think that's one of the hazards. That's another one of the things I wanted to touch on tonight, about how we are fed information and how we watch information and how we process things. I think a lot of things that bother people, a lot of things that affect them emotionally, they want to turn away from it. If they hear a story about, let's say some politician were to be accused of running some child pornography ring or some horrible thing like that, we would, everybody would gasp and say that's a horrible thing and that's terrible. Some people, though, would say, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And you ask them, here's the thing, and here's a tricky thing about psychology. And I noticed this, and it bothers me, is that I ask people, and I use that because that's a hypothetical scenario, but I'm saying, But there are instances that have happened, other things, where a story will be publicized and somebody will deny it. Oh, that didn't happen. And I'll ask them, I'll say, well, why do you think that didn't happen? Well, because it's just too horrible. It's like, I don't know what it is, but some people in some situations will have some sort of psychological reaction to something, and they just can't handle it. So because they can't process it and digest it or get through it, they do radical things. And the media and governments will take advantage of that. They will stir you emotionally, and they will get people riled up, and they will, when you say enough is enough, we've got to do something. Well, I don't think that we need to do anything about that Facebook situation and what happened. I don't think that we need to do anything. I think it was an incident that shouldn't have happened. It was unfortunate, and it shouldn't happen again. None of us want anything like that to happen again. But I don't think that any action, global action, when I use the term global, I mean as a community, I don't think we need to impose any new regulation on Facebook or on any other site or on the internet as a whole. So we get into the business of reacting emotionally to things that happen like that and then overreact. We don't realize that we give away our freedom in doing so. That's when we have to pause and say, that was really messed up. But a new regulation would not have prevented him from killing someone. That wouldn't have done that. It may have prevented him from broadcasting that live, certainly. But, you can't regulate everything in the world. Because when you do, your boxes get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And the next thing you know, you live in a tiny little cage. And we all do. And that's not freedom. There's no sense of freedom in that. Unfortunately, human beings do terrible things from time to time. And that's never probably going to end. And that's sad. It's unfortunate. But that's just the way it is. But when we use every little thing that happens that's bad in the world, and the media stirs it up and amplifies it and gets everyone emotionally debating over it, and the next thing you know, there's a regulation for this and a regulation for that, and a regulation for this. The next thing you know, you can't leave. Nobody's going to be able to leave their house without a computer chip in their brain to track you every minute of the day. And that nobody wants to live like that. So
we're already like that, though, Jamie. We're already like that, though, with a cell phone.
Well, true. We are innocent that way, but I don't think people are comfortable with the idea that your cell phone can be tracked. They're not comfortable with it. Yes, it is a sad reality that we can be kept track of that way. You're absolutely right. But we're not comfortable with it. And giving up but to give into that and to say, yeah, just go ahead and do whatever you want. Take more freedom. Take this out. Let's say that the powers that be examined that incident that happened the other day, and they've got a study group, and they learned from it, and they go, a lot of people are saying that we should impose new regulations on the internet now because of that. This would be a great opportunity to push some more regulations on the people. And if they don't want to do it on this, maybe we manufacture an incident and then stir people up emotionally. You know what I mean? These are things that concern me, is that we can't overreact every time to something that affects us emotionally or bury our heads in the sand. Sometimes we're going to have to realize that the world is unfortunate and people do bad things and people abuse laws and people abuse things and do the wrong thing. We have, mankind is fallible and we're never going to get away from that. So there has to be some effort on people's thinking and the way they digest information, that they calm down and not be dictated and manipulated so much. And not their first gut reaction isn't to, oh my God, somebody's got to do something about this, because that can be that reaction, and knowing that is a pattern reaction in people can be manipulated. If you know that you put out a story or that you create an incident and you report on it a certain way, that large portions of the public are going to react a certain way, you could then turn around and manipulate that to whatever end that you want. And, is there some room for improvement? Certainly. Like I suggested earlier, I think that Facebook should have taken that down immediately, and YouTube should have taken it down immediately. I guarantee you, if you put up a porno video on Facebook, it'd be taken down in 30 minutes. So why wasn't that taken down? You know what I mean? That falls on them. They need to self-regulate, and we can lean on them. There are civil ways to lean on people. In other words, when I say civil, I mean you can petition them, you can sue them, you can do a lot of things. But to say, oh my God, now we've got to regulate the internet so that doesn't happen. First of all, it might be an impossible thing to do, and second of all, I just don't think that's the right course of action. I think to enjoy freedom, you have to take some risk in this world. You have to. For you and I to be able to do what we do, which is have alternative sources of information and entertainment and news and things we want to do with the public, to offer that. If we didn't have freedom of the internet to be able to go out and create these entities that you and I do our shows on and offer our news on and things, well, we'd be out of business and we wouldn't have a voice. So we got to be very careful to not, bite your nose off to spite your face. It's unfortunate, but I think that really the responsibility comes down on in that particular case that we were talking about would be Facebook and YouTube for allowing that material to stay up so long.
This also opens up another chapter as well, and social media is filled with it, Jamie, is the fact that fear-mongering seems to be absolutely everywhere. We touched on this a little bit the last time you were on, but pretty much any time you deal with the media now or a conversation with the media, we have to get into the whole fear-mongering factor. Now, since the last time you were on, we now have threats once again, probably the closest we've been since the Cold War, of a nuclear war breaking out between the United States and North Korea. Never mind the mess in Syria. Russia's pissed off. China's pissed off. The Japanese now say, hey, why don't we have nukes? I mean, there's a lot of crap going on. And you go on social media now, about 1 in every 10 people coming through my slide, on my posts that I see in my feed, we're going to nuclear war. The planet's done. Everybody is in absolute panic mode these days. So at what point does the fear-mongering kick in regards to the media and social media?
Well, I don't know. That's a difficult question to answer. I suppose if I was out in the wilderness and I was camping in a tent, and all of a sudden I looked out the vent and I saw a bear, I'm not really going to, play, in my mind, I'm not going to play out the best case scenarios. Oh, you know what? He's probably just here for the granola bars. My mind is going to prepare for the worst. I'm going to as we all do, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to naturally have an emotional reaction to that. And so how I react to that is, up to me in my thinking process. But when there's any threat or loom of, and no matter how real it may be or amplified it may be, of nuclear war, that should alarm all of us. Now, some people are going to react to that more emotional, and some people are going to react to it a little hastily, and people are going to jump to conclusions. Oh, we're marching to war today, or it's going to happen next week, or it's inevitable, or, and then you'll hear rumors of things that were said that weren't actually said, and et cetera, et cetera. Again, I think that's just one of the hazards of human, and that's not new, by the way. That's not that sort of behavior and reaction and thinking and spreading of information and overreacting. None of that is new just because of the internet and social media and all of that. Social media, I don't believe that social media changed the way people live in every context of life that we think that it did. I think in a lot of ways it just shed a light on it. You know what I mean? I think that people kind of behave the way people always did to an extent. They may have new tools and new avenues to do things, but I don't necessarily think that social media in itself is necessarily a culprit. I think it's just human behavior. As far as, the threat of war and the loom of war, and the fear-mongering that you brought up, you're always going to have people that will do that. On the other hand, I also think that the mainstream media doesn't tell us enough. They don't necessarily tell us things that we need to know, that I feel that we need to know that are going on in the world. And so there's a balance there between alternative media and mainstream media, between, having a polished report that may be watered down, maybe not telling you everything, and then maybe there's somebody that's bringing you a little more of the information that mainstream's not, but they're delivering it in maybe an unpolished way that comes across fear-mongering. And maybe it is, because that is a form of entertainment. People who create a climate of fear like that a lot of times will gain an audience. But I do believe that there's constantly the possibility for something erupting in the world. And I think that we should all kind of keep our eye on that ball. You know what I mean? So I don't overreact to things. I kind of try to discipline myself to where, if that bear is outside of my tent, obviously I'm going to emotionally have an initial reaction to it. But then it's up to my thinking process to see how I'm going to react to that, how I'm going to process that. If there's a threat of nuclear war or talk of it or this or that on the horizon, obviously I want to be made aware of that. And obviously, to some degree, it's going to affect me emotionally. I'm going to start to ponder, well, where's this going? What does all this mean? But I think the media doesn't tell us as much as they should about things that are going on in the world. The mainstream media, that is. So it's a balance. If somebody on the internet is telling me more information that the mainstream media is not telling me about a situation that's going on in the world, I'm not going to judge them necessarily so harshly for their personality or their style or this or that. Because I'm not looking to them for entertainment value. I'm not looking to them. I'm just looking at it for me personally. Here's some information. I need to digest that. I need to weigh that out. I can't police the psyche of everyone in the world. You know what I mean? Neither can you, neither can the media. You know, we can't say, you know, some people may take this the wrong way, so we shouldn't tell them. To me, I don't subscribe to that. You know what I mean? I think that people they should educate themselves, not only scholastically, but just, you know, organically, intellectually. Police yourself and educate yourself on how to process information. And like I mentioned earlier, maybe extract a little bit of your bias out of the process, extract a little bit of your initial emotional reaction out of the process. So when you hear something, you can just kind of weigh it out logically. You can say, well, how does this fit into the other stuff that I know and the other stuff that I've heard? You know, sort of don't just rely on whoever's feeding you information, whether it be one of the major networks or whether it be some alternative news station or website, even like my own. When you hear information, use your own mind. Do not trust that just because somebody's telling you something that it's true. And don't trust that just because somebody's telling you something that it's all of the story. You may be just getting the last 60 seconds of that video I talked about earlier. You know, we really need to start being more responsible about how we receive and process information. But we're so trained and so reliant on gut reactions based on our own bias, whether it be political bias, religious bias, emotional, you know, bias, how we were raised, our ethnicity. You know, we all these things become a part of our filtering system. It's how we receive information and how we process information. And the more you're able to lower your bias, and the more that you're able to get past an emotional reaction to a story, I think you're going to have a better chance of processing information fairly and more balanced than just saying, oh my God, this is horrible, we need to do something, or shut that off, or, you understand what I'm saying? Like, we need to be more responsible about it. And then in turn, we need to demand that of the people who are feeding the information to us as well.
Dennis brings in a good comment here in the Spreaker chat room. And basically what he's saying here is that fear-mongering is a very overused phrase, yet when real news that is concerning to people comes out, people have been trained now to dismiss it like it's nothing.
I would agree with that. I think that you can have the flip side to what I was talking about. A lot of people, like I was alluding, can have a very emotional reaction to everything, and then other people can have a very apathetic reaction to everything for that very reason that your listener suggests. Because a lot of that has to do with trust. Because they don't know whether to trust a story or not, because they hear terms like fear-mongering, and they hear terms like fake news, and they hear those kind of things. So they sort of turn a blind eye to it, or it doesn't, as opposed to having too much emotional reaction to a story or something that should interest you, you have no interest in it. Because, and a lot of times, I think that if a story is being manipulated, if something that I'll give you an example. One of the first stories that we're going to do on Rebel Planet is about chemtrails, because that's a very big issue to me, and I think the media, that's one of those issues that the mainstream media sort of, discards. And if you have any interest in that, or you have any concern in that, I think that you're made to be seen as a tinfoil hat wearer and a conspiracy theorist, and it's to be dismissed. But I have some very, very legitimate concerns about the Kim sharing program and some new information that we're going to tackle when we launch the site. It's going to be one of our biggest first stories. So, but people hear things about like chemtrails, but then they get online and they're like, I don't know if this is real or not. I don't know if this is a conspiracy theory, and it goes back and forth and back and forth. And the next thing you know, it's so watered down that they're not even interested. You know what I mean? Alternative sites report a lot of misinformation, while mainstream news medias report nothing about it. So there's nowhere in between there for anybody to really gain any real interest. It's one of those things where people become apathetic about what they hear. They can't invest in it if they want to. They can't learn more about it because real information is not out there about it. And I think that probably applies to a lot of things you tackled on your show, subjects that may interest people that have been discarded as spooky or too far out there. And so people turn a blind eye to it. And so, you got to, again, you can't be too apathetic about your world. And then you also need to discipline yourself not to overreact, not to be too emotional, that you pick a side too harshly or whatever. Again, it's all about being balanced and looking at information objectively. That's what I like to do.
And I think we all like to do that. However, the uglier the situation becomes, Jamie, the more people start to tune out. We don't deal with things anymore. We run away. And, you put a human effort on, put in a human effort on that. I mean, how many women have you been with over your time in relationships where instead of dealing with their problems, they run away? That's what happened between me and my ex-wife. Right? We're afraid to deal with things anymore when we can hide on social media, where we can hide our feelings, hide everything, and everything is fake. There's nothing real anymore. And I think that leads to the processing and the programming of what has happened with the media.
I agree. I think that, we are emotional creatures, and we will either overreact to something sensationally, or we will become apathetic about it. And I think that either one of those reactions is too far at either end of the respective pendulum, because it doesn't allow us to really be involved in reality. It becomes, a lot of reality for people nowadays becomes a little too bothersome. Oh, I don't want to deal with that. They don't really invest in their communities. They don't invest in their families. They don't invest in their environment. They don't invest in their country. Not in the way that they should. People are out really, we've become a really hyper-socialized environment. And not to contradict myself, but maybe social media has amplified that to a certain degree. But, at the end of the day, I think that we just we don't want to be bothered with stuff, either because it affects us or because it takes up our time. You know what I mean? And a lot of times, people, if you suggest, there's been a lot of times when I was writing on a subject that seemed like the government may be hiding something from us in a particular story, or the media may be hiding something from us in a particular story. And I noticed that whenever that's brought up, you will gain a certain audience that is curious about that possibility. But then you'll also have an audience that just out of hand dismisses it. And out of those people that dismiss it, they usually come from one of two schools. Either they just think it's too kooky and why, that's just silly, or they just don't want to believe that it's true. And, that's unfortunate, because if you don't want to believe that it's true because it's too horrible for you, or it seems too implausible, just on that alone, that's, to me, that leaves a lot of room for manipulation. Because if you can assume that you can manipulate the public in a particular way and just get away with it because it's just going to seem too kooky, then you just do it. They'll just do something like a full-scale chemtrail campaign across the globe for 20 years, right in front of our face, where every day we can look up and see that this is being done, but they just shrug their shoulders and go, it's not happening. It's not happening, because we become apathetic about it, or it's too horrible, or it doesn't make sense, or, we just don't want to be bothered. Most people just don't want to be bothered in their day. You're interrupting my game. You're interrupting my concert. You're interrupting dinner, or that just sounds too horrible. I don't want to believe that, so I'm not going to believe it. Those kind of things are, I think they're tragic. And I think that, if people are out to manipulate the public, they're going to use those things scientifically. They're going to know what affects you emotionally. And they're going to know what they can probably get away with, And when they have the purse strings to the media outlets and everything else, they can do a fine job of exercising manipulation, whether it's to further an agenda, to start a war, or whatever it may be, And those possibilities, for me, are very real. I concern myself with those things because it's happened in history. We know that it's happened in history, and it can happen again. And I think that a lot of people think that we have the luxury of living in the time that we do, and that, things like that just can't happen again. And I don't subscribe to that. I think that we need to learn lessons from history and not give up our freedoms, and not play into the possibility of manipulation. So, to me, I try to stay somewhere in the middle of where I see a lot of people fall, like I said, either on one side of the pendulum or the other, either too apathetic, or they react too emotional and hop on the blue train or the red train too fast.
So at what point do people have to sit back then and analyze the media a little bit more? If they have already been trained over the last 20 years that this is the way news is now. The days of Walter Cronkite or Dan Rather are over.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that you don't have to do anything radical to start training yourself to just be a little more discerning about information. Don't get your information or your news from just one source. That's I think a lot of people kind of do that. I gotta watch my program tonight, and they watch the same news channel, and they start to absorb all those little subliminal hints of what political party they need to lean towards, this and that, and and they don't make enough time in their lives to even gather enough information. So I think people can do it fairly easily if they just invest a little more objectivity and a little more time in learning about the world around them, and just become a little more invested in it. Start talking to each other, have debates, have healthy ones, not violent ones, If someone disagrees with you, fine, they disagree with you. But I think open discussions are good, and that's one of the benefits that I find to the internet and to open forums and to alternative media and discussion groups and things. Those are some of the benefits that the internet has offered to us, that we can communicate more openly and on a larger scale with each other. And, but at the same time, you're always going to have that hazard of misinformation. That's not going to go away. That's never going to go away. You can't expect someone else to babysit what goes in your brain and how you process it. That's your job. That's all of our. We all have to do that job ourselves. We have to learn about our world. We have to be objective. And I would suggest, like I said a few times tonight, I would suggest disciplining yourself to lower your bias, and lower your emotional reactions to things so that you have a little bit better chance of sort of thinking about what you're hearing and what you're processing instead of just reacting. Because reacting is natural. And if anybody's going to manipulate and take advantage of you, they're going to use that. They're going to use that tool. They're going to go, if we put out this story, people are going to react a certain way. And all we've got to do is spend all week slanting our stories a certain way, and we can move the public this way or that way. And I've seen that done quite effectively. There's been, I don't know, maybe 10 stories over the past 8 years that were major stories in the news where gun control became the forefront topic of whatever story it was. And the story that the original story that it came from just sort of dissolved and went away. And it all became about that. And I saw a very, very clear agenda from many, many news agencies trying to kick that political football down the road. They used some sort of incident that happened to further that agenda. Now, we don't have to get into that debate. That's, but I'm just saying that what I'm saying is that there are opportunities when you know that the public is going to react a certain way. That's when they will use tactics to manipulate a story to further agendas. But if we train ourselves to not react that way and not to be so susceptible to those types of tactics, we'll be better for it.
Well, let's hope that the public can wake up and starts paying attention a little bit more. Because in the end, it's the public reaction that's going to gauge. And if they can call the media out and the media starts to bend over it, which can happen, it really can happen. It may not seem like it anymore, but the public still does have a say. And if the public can get that reaction back to where they need and their dismay with what is going on with reporters, it could change the ball game almost immediately.
Oh, absolutely. I like I said earlier, I think that whether it's taking Facebook to task for leaving a video of a murder up too long, or if it's taking CNN to task for falsely reporting a story, knowingly doing so, or any other agency for that matter, knowingly misrepresenting the truth or affecting the public in a negative way like that, they need to be taken to task. But I think it needs to be done through civil means, whether it be litigation or petitions or whatever it may take. And we need to avoid even that becoming one of those processes where we overreact, and the next thing we know, we legislate ourselves. So there's a lot of balance in there and a lot of responsibility that I think that we need to start taking as a public and as individuals that we've neglected for the longest time. We've all become afraid to speak our mind because that's not politically correct or this or that. And I don't agree with that sort of thing. I think when we start finding ways to stop talking to each other and we make that okay, that's when we run into trouble. I mean, think about this. How many people actually even know who their neighbors are nowadays? I mean, how many people know who they even in the apartment complexes or in a neighborhood? so many people don't even know the people that live right next door to them or across the street. They have no idea. They don't know how many people live in the house. They don't know the family. They don't know their name. They don't know their phone number. And these are people that live right next door to you or across the street. That's not really the way the world used to work. We've become so disjointed, and we've become trained to feel and think that way. So, it's easier to, what's that old phrase, what was it, divide and conquer, right? So if the powers that be know that it's easier to conquer the public, whether it be through manipulation or whatever it is they want to do, they're going to do so more easily if we're divided. If our communities are strong, our families are strong, our homes are strong, our nation is strong, and we talk to each other, and we're not afraid to talk to each other, and we're not afraid to disagree, and we're not afraid to find solutions amongst ourselves and not always look to the government to regulate and solve everything. If we go back to being a people that work as a people instead of just individuals that hide in our own little cocoon, we'll be stronger because of that. This disjointed way of living, the only socialization, or the strongest socialization I see nowadays, is in chat rooms or on social media. That's not socialization. If you've got 4,000 friends on your Facebook, but you don't know who your neighbor is, there's something wrong with the world. That's just the way I see it.
Jamie, we only have about 2.5 minutes left with you. This show has flown on by, as per usual. Is there a solution that you have been able to come up with on how to improve the state of media in the United States?
That would be difficult because it is so corporate and so giant. It's sort of a juggernaut at this point. I think that the best way we can go about that right now, at least for now, is to do things like you and I are doing and other people. I got a friend that just launched a website called Social Media Freedom, and it's a new it's socialmediafreedom.com, and it's a new social networking website. And it's uncensored. People can say what they want to say. I just think the more alternative media, while we still have the freedom to do so, and create these avenues where we can talk about things openly without censorship, is our best bet. Because the stronger we become in the alternative, the mainstream is going to have to follow suit. Because if they start losing their audience and they start losing their numbers because of the strength of alternative media, then that will make a difference. But having said that, I think that alternative media is going to have to do a good job of policing themselves as well. Otherwise, you're going to constantly continue to be marginalized. So we've got to do our job in being responsible on our end, and that would include Facebook. Facebook needs to consider not leaving videos up like they did, and YouTube as well.
Jamie,
we need regulations for that.
Jamie, we only got about 60 seconds, and I want to get in a quick question. And this comes from Ron. He's asking, Jamie, how do you feel about the media that we do here on Spaced Out Radio then?
Well, I think Spaced Out Radio is fun. I enjoy it. You guys cover a lot of topics on Spaced Out Radio. And a lot of topics I have absolutely no experience with, paranormal stuff, things like that. So for me, I enjoy it. I think it's, for me, it's entertainment. And I've always had a curious mind about things like that. I think we all do to some extent. So I think it's great. Listen, I don't care if somebody wants to talk about aliens or politics for how to bake the best cookies. I think there's a place for everybody out there to communicate and socialize and spread information and do what they need to do. So I'm all for it, and I'm glad that you've done what you've done with Spaced Out Radio, and I have a lot of fun listening.
Thank you, brother. And I promise Tiffany that the Unicorn Show is coming. The unicorns are coming, man. Hey, Jamie, I'm going to get you to hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. Jamie's website, rebelplanetnews.com. The official launch is still a couple of months away, but it's going to be absolutely great. Tomorrow night on the program, we talk the Phoenix Lights with David Spinks. He's never told this story publicly. We got the breaking story of his event, being in the U.S. Air Force when the lights appeared over the Arizona desert on March 13th, 1997. Make sure you check out our website, spacedoutradio.com, for all your information regarding the mighty SOR. Follow us all over social media. And, of course, do us a favor. Tell a friend. Space Out Radio. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, take us home.